Welcome to the URBIS Dialogues Webinar 3. Today's webinar, curated by Chantal van Ham of the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, or IUCN, is Reconciling Economic Development, Investment Opportunities, and the Value of Nature and Urban Green Infrastructure, Identifying Policies and Incentives for Livable Cities. The webinar is brought to you by the Urban Biosphere Initiative, or URBIS. URBIS is a global network connecting acclaimed scientific researchers, foresighted policymakers, visionary planners, and environmental practitioners from across the world, partnering with local governments to share, develop, and implement ideas for creating more resilient and equitable urban regions. Our URBIS Advisory Board and partners are shown on the screen now. Please go to the website shown in the bottom left to find out more about URBIS and the full series of exciting dialogues. The URBIS Dialogues are a 15-month webinar series, a global platform for online dialogue held the first Thursday of every month and archived for repeated viewing. The series brings together representatives of cities and local governments and leading experts from around the world, sharing experiences, addressing specific urban challenges, focusing on the sustainable use of regional biodiversity and ecosystem services, to support social development in a rapidly urbanizing world. Please note that the next URBIS Dialogue will be on the 6th of August, curated by David Maddox of the Nature of Cities, on Ecosystem Services Part 1, Assessing the Current State of Cities. Today's webinar is curated by Chantal van Ham, and its title is Reconciling Economic Development, Investment Opportunities, and the Value of Nature and Urban Green Infrastructure, Identifying Policies and Incentives for Livable Cities, with 3 speakers, Marianne Kettunen, Victor Burmer, and David Beaumont. We welcome questions throughout the dialogue, so please use the question feature in the control panel on your screen, and we will try and address them at the end. I'm now going to hand over to Louisa, who's going to give us a technical guide session on how to use the webinar facility. Thanks, Louisa.
Hello, also from my side, a very warm welcome to this webinar. I am Louisa from the ICLEI World Secretariat, and I will give you a short technical introduction since I am the technical facilitator of this webinar. I want to make you aware of how we use the system, and that in your case you will be muted throughout the presentations given. This means in case you have questions, as already mentioned, please type them into the questions box. We will then take care of these questions in a question and answer session that we have after the presentations. You can then also raise your hand, and we may have the time, we may not, to unmute you and engage in a discussion with you during this question and answer session. Lastly, if you encounter technical problems, please also feel free to type them into the question box. I will be happy to assist you as far as I can from remote. I hope you enjoy this webinar with us.
Thanks, Louisa. I'd like to hand over to Chantal van Ham. Chantal is the EU Programme Manager for Nature-Based Solutions in the IUCN EU Representative Office, and she's responsible for IUCN's activities on urban biodiversity and the cooperation with subnational governments in Europe. She develops and coordinates projects for biodiversity and ecosystem services conservation, restoration, and valuation that help policymakers, cities, local and regional governments find nature-based solutions for sustainable development by mobilizing IUCN knowledge and best practices. Before joining IUCN, Chantal worked as finance specialist with PricewaterhouseCoopers in the Netherlands. She has a degree in international business and a master's in forest and nature conservation policy. Chantal is passionate about nature and perceives exchange with people from different professional and cultural backgrounds. Thanks so much, Chantal. We welcome you to this webinar.
Thank you very much, Gina, and thank you all for joining today's URBIS Dialogue. IUCN has selected the topic today to look into how we can reconcile economic development with nature in the urban context. While all economic value ultimately derives from nature, it is currently invisible. It's not accounted for in our economic systems. What is often forgotten is that nature and the services it provides are essential for the survival of people and to make the economy thrive. The world's protected area network plays an important role in climate change mitigation and adaptation, and the benefits, for example, of the European network of protected areas, Natura 2000, has been estimated at 2 to 3% of the EU's GDP. Another example is that an estimated $6.5 trillion is contributed annually to the global economy by water infrastructure services such as wetlands, lakes, and rivers. Nature filters toxins, buffers against storms, and stores water. Healthy ecosystems form the backbone of a sustainable future, and the services it provides need to be safeguarded and nurtured to ensure continued benefits for people and nature. Cities have an important role to play in building up green infrastructure and in protecting and restoring nature, as they are often located in biodiversity-rich areas and depend on numerous services directly delivered by nearby ecosystems such as rivers, forests, wetlands, and peatlands. Their protection and restoration is essential for the life of many urban citizens. The main question we would like to address in today's dialogue is how can we demonstrate the value of nature and green infrastructure for responding to societal challenges and to turn the perspective on nature from a cost to an investment in political and economic decision-making at the urban level. I'm very pleased to present to you three distinguished experts, Marianne Kettunen from the Institute for European Environmental Policy, Victor Böhmer from Deltares, and David Beeman from the Victoria Business Improvement District in London. They will share with you their views on policies and opportunities that natural solutions can provide in response to urban challenges and how blue and green infrastructure can become an incentive to urban planners and developers. So our first speaker is Marianne Kettunen, who is Principal Policy Analyst at the Institute for European Environmental Policy, and she is specialized in issues related to conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity at EU and global level. In her presentation, she will highlight the important connection between protected areas and cities in terms of ecosystem services flows and their social and economic benefits. She will also tell us more about methods that exist to assess the value of these benefits and how this can support investment in natural solutions for specific urban challenges such as natural disasters, health, or climate change mitigation. Marianne, the floor is yours.
Marianne, remember to unmute yourself so that we can hear you. So it seems that she has lost the audio connection to us. Maybe we want to change the order of the presentation. The floor is yours, Chantal.
Okay, thank you. So our next speaker is Victor Böhmer. He's a landscape ecologist with Deltares in the Netherlands. Deltares is an independent institute for applied research in the field of water and subsurface, and his work involves development and implementation of eco-engineering solutions for infrastructure in urban areas and beyond. In his presentation, he will explain how ecological functions such as soil and water flows can be integrated in spatial design and planning to make cities more resilient. And he will focus in particular on an example from Rotterdam, Building with Nature, where he's involved in a program called The River as Tidal Park. Victor, you can start your presentation.
Okay, thank you, Chantal. Hi, everybody. Nice that you are all interested to listen to this. Like Chantal said, I work at Deltaris, an applied research institute, focusing on building with nature. And today I will present to you some information on the program River as a Tidal Park, which we are partner in, and it's placed in Rotterdam. Short personal introduction. I work for Deltaris as a landscape ecologist, but I work also very much on a multidisciplinary approach. I work on green infrastructure. I also coordinate the working group green infrastructure of the EU water platform. I work with nature-based solutions, also called eco-engineering or building with nature, and I will come back to that in a minute. Deltaris is also a member of a consortium EcoShape. It's important that I tell you because this project is as EcoShape. We are now in our second lustrum, and EcoShape is a consortium of different parties. We have the main dredgers, Dutch dredging companies in the consortium, some consultancies, even some municipalities, state water service, etc. And I will also explain what we are doing. This project I was talking about is EFRO financed, and it's called Knowledge Valorization, Building with Nature in the City. So what is building with nature? I have no clue who is listening to me now, so I will start explaining what we think or do with building with nature. And I will do it by examples because this is the most obvious thing and easy to explain, I guess. This here you see is a willow forest, and we have used this willow forest, we have planted it just before the dikes, and in order that they attenuate waves, and in this way they protect the dikes. So it's a hybrid solution to high water levels, or actually to high wave heights. And it reduces wave heights, and in that way it makes the dikes much more safer. Another example of building with nature are constructed oyster reefs, and oysters will grow on them. You can place them in the water in the natural system, and they reduce the water dynamics between the shores and the reef, and in that way you have more sedimentation and also wave breaking at an earlier point, and in this way you protect the shores as well. This is a floating structure. There are actually just ropes on a floating device, and these ropes will be grown with mussels and other clams, and these mussels are filtrating the water because they're water filtrators. They like to do this, and in this way you can clean your water. We've actually did pilots in the harbor of Rotterdam, and they're actually working quite well. And you can get up to a structure like this, up to 300 kilos of biomass. And an extra benefit we found out is that they also can be used to dampen your waves because it extracts the wave energy from the water. Another example of building with nature is sandy foreshores. Sandy and vegetated foreshores is actually a dredged material that you put against the dike, and in this way you enlarge your shore. So waves are broken at an earlier stage, and also the vegetation that will grow on it is some kind of a marsh vegetation. It will dampen out the waves. So this is also a wave attenuation concept. So these are examples of building with nature. So as a matter of fact, building with nature shows how you can utilize natural processes And next to having to giving a certain nature value, you're really working on water safety matters. Building with nature contributes to what I said, water safety. This is the main focus, but also nature development. Because you get nature, it also contributes to well-being, improvement of water quality. If you do it in a city, you can make the city climate-proof, and in the end, it can also be much cheaper than the civil engineered solutions. So if you have found out now, Daltaris is also focusing very much on engineering. As well am I, as a landscape ecologist. I work a lot with civil engineers on these matters, and so the approach I'm showing you is also very engineered. I'm working also one day with the community, with the municipality of Rotterdam. And here I work a lot with urban designers. And they always ask me, or always, not anymore, but in the start they asked me, what is the difference of building with nature to city greening? Because we know how to green the city, but what do you exactly mean with this building with nature? So I thought, yeah, that's a good question. I have to explain this. So I put it in one sheet. City greening, what we mean with this is more, and I don't want to point any fingers or disregard anything, but we talk about gardening or greening the city. So you bring in plants to have a greener setting, more vegetated setting. In this way you can increase livability. People start to feel better, feel good. So it's also increasing health. But it's also very beneficial for recreation, and I mean with that actively enjoying city nature, and it gives you some kind of a natural surrounding. And I mean with that, if you plant flowers in a park or in a part of the city, you attract butterflies, and in this way people start experiencing nature. But I put nature between brackets because it is not actually real nature, and in most of the time it is more of a local approach. There are, of course, city-wide visions on how to green your city, but the projects they do on city greening, they have often a local approach, like setting up a park, and they really hold to their project boundaries. And now to building with nature. What is the difference then with building with nature? For building with nature, we really look at climate adaptation, and in the Netherlands we say we want to keep dry feet, and we also want to make sure that there's an awareness of the surrounding natural system. And what do I mean with that? Because building with nature concepts or examples are working with nature instead of against nature. If you put up a park in a city, you often have to manage this park very well, otherwise it will change, because it will grow with the natural processes. And if you design a building with nature concept that fits in the natural processes that are existent in this place, then you can also make people aware of how the natural surrounding in this area should be. And in this way you also create more real natural values that you can also use for normation measures. And also the self-reliance of the natural system, so that the natural system can manage itself, because it's working with the natural processes instead of against it. So in the building with nature always has to have a system approach. You need to know, have a good system analysis to know what processes hydrologically or ecologically are going on, and from there you can build up your building with nature concept. And by the way, we call it building with nature, but you can also call it sometimes green infrastructure or nature-based solutions. They're all more or less the same with some slight differences. So, and I don't want to say this is building with nature instead of city greening. It is an excellent thing to mix these things. I don't want to push something away. So, back to Rotterdam. And I have to introduce Rotterdam a little. I don't know, I think most people know Rotterdam. But Rotterdam is in the west side of the Netherlands, near the sea. It is actually caught between rivers. The Nieuwe Maas River is flowing through it. At the bottom on the right, you can see it as a nice skyline. It's also very close to the river. And on the top picture, you can see after a heavy shower at some places, you can really have some problems. In the top left picture, you see a nice, it's actually a really nice picture of the Nieuwe Maas River flowing through the Rotterdam urban area. And the structures you see more upstream, or actually it's downstream, but for us it looks like upstream, are harbors. And some of these harbors are real urban harbors and not much operational for a commercial site anymore. And in the picture downwards on the right, you see this is an illustration on how the river as a tidal park could look like. So now I'm mentioning the river as a tidal park. Why is this program set up? Well, the current situation in the Rotterdam area, and now I'm talking from the sea almost past Rotterdam. There you have many stony and steep river banks or shores, and more than 70%. And this gives, of course, a very hard look to the river. And well, the city of Rotterdam wants to have it otherwise, because this is not a very attractive site. Also, there's a lot of ecological poverty, a lot of habitats that you would expect in a tidal zone like this is, because within the city of Rotterdam we have even more than 1.5 meters of tidal difference. And normally in an estuary you would have large flats, tidal mud flats, and other tidal marshes, salty or brackish. And these are missing in this system. And you can imagine this is not only for the site that it's missing, but also a lot of fishes are not attracted anymore, or birds. And especially for fish, it's also that the rivers seem to be isolated from the hinterland. And of course, you have many fish that needs to go to the hinterland to reproduce. And so you can see ecologically there needs to be done something. But also water safety issue. Of course, we are in the Netherlands, so we really need to address water safety. As you might know, in the Netherlands we are very fond of dikes. We dike everything. And the green parts here in the Rotterdam districts are fine, because we look at 2050, and at that time we now want to have the dikes ready for the expected situation in 2050. And you can see the red parts are not ready. They need to be heightened or enforced, and this of course costs really a lot of money, and billions are put into the dike system in the Netherlands, only to manage or to enforce or to heighten them. So we're also looking for concepts that so we don't have to heighten or to strengthen the dikes. And this could be what I'm talking about, building with nature. So back to the Rivers Tidal Park. With the poverties and the problems I just described, they thought, okay, we have to bring together the city and nature again, together with all the benefits that might address these problems, as I said. And so they formed a consortium, a big consortium, and you see now a lot of text, and I really want to go through it because it's important, also because we were talking about the incentive to set up a nature-based solution or a building with nature concept. And so different organizations got together. The first one is, for example, the Dutch State Water Service, Rijkswaterstaat. And their interest in this program is that they have obligation in the Water Framework Directive for constructing of natural shores. And within this program, they might be able to find suitable shores to turn into natural shores. And in this way, they get ready with the Water Framework Directive. Okay, the Worldwide Fund for Nature and the Dutch part of it, WNF, together with ARC, actually, it's a foundation, also is in this consortium. It of course has a biodiversity goal. They want to increase the tidal nature area in the estuarium of South Holland. The Port of Rotterdam, in Dutch the Havenbedrijf, they are actually looking for a balance within the economic growth of the harbor itself and the balance with a healthy environment. Of course, they also have to compensate for their expansion, and they are interested maybe through this program to set up these goals. And they are also very interested with the reuse of dredge material, because you can imagine a lot of dredge material comes out of these harbors or from the river, and if they can reuse it at more or less the same region, then it would be very sustainable. Of course, the municipality of Rotterdam, they want a sustainable and livable city. They need to do a lot of climate adaptation measures, but very important for the municipality is also recreation and awareness of the tidal system. And why awareness of the tidal system? If you stand in Rotterdam, I don't know if many people of you have been in Rotterdam, but if you are in Rotterdam, then you can actually, there's hardly any place that you really can experience the tidal working of the water. And sometimes you can see the darker spots of where the water level has been, but there are actually nowhere really areas that you can experience a tidal dynamics. And if people start aware they live in a tidal system, it also gives them some backup in order, because they expect a lot of water problems. If people understand why these problems are there, then that would be much better, of course. The province of South Holland is also a partner in this. They have goals in increasing space for biodiversity, but also experiencing green. And this is also a nice one. They like to have more agricultural entrepreneurship. And so they're also looking in a way what maybe urban farming can do along the river. And also EcoShape, that's where I'm working for. And we have this building with nature concepts, and we want to show that it works. So we are looking for pilot areas, and we want to further develop knowledge, and especially knowledge that is suited for urban operational processes or urban situations. And of course, we have the Dutch Ministry of Infrastructure and Environment, because they have a large responsibility in the water safety. And since the end of March, we also have water boards of Delftland and Schieland and Kippenwaterboard, and the municipality of Ridderkerk. So you see, we have an expansive consortium with all different incentives to participate in this program. And of course, not all the parties have equal amount of money to put in there. I think the parties who put most money in are the State Water Service and also the province. And the other parties, also like EcoShape, they put money in because we get external projects, and from these projects we can work within this program. So this is how the financing structure of this is. And moreover, the money of State Water Service and the province and of Rotterdam themselves is used for building the building with nature concepts. So let's dive into Rotterdam. How will this look like? This is a small opportunity map. This is only for within the city of Rotterdam. Here you see all the urban ports, as they call it. Most of them are not commercially used anymore, so not by the Port of Rotterdam, the company, but and so they are starting to reconsider the use of these ports or these harbors, and well, using it to show tidal nature is one of them. But as I said, all the incentives from all the partners are tried to express in these new projects. I'm almost to the end of my presentation, but here are two cases within this tidal river park, Nassau Haven and Mallegatspark, shown by the arrows. Nassau Haven will be executed in 2016 and onwards, and Mallegatspark is executed actually this year. So we're now in the process of designing really this area. In short, on the left you see Nassau Haven. The shore of Nassau Haven, or actually the harbor wall, is very steep and very hard structure, of course, and we try now to design a shore that gives you benefits for nature. Well, it's actually a small area, but maybe we can use it as a stepping stone for ecological connectivity and these things. And it has to show tidal dynamics. They are also setting up their floating houses, and especially they and the surrounding area, they have to experience the nature we are now designing. On the right, much more complex design, and we are actually in the middle of it now. And we have now made up a stretched dam, and between the dam and the shore, and tidal zone is existent. And here we expect mud flats, tidal flats to exist, and also tidal marshy zones. How can we be sure of this? Because if you look up again to the map, you can see, for the specialists among us, that we are now at an outer part of the river, and in this part it is very normal that you have a high erosion because you have a high water stream over there. So we really need to make this stretch dam in order to manipulate the physical boundaries, so you can get a tidal area dependent on sedimentation and erosion processes. We are now calculating how large the openings within the stretch dam should be to let the flow through, so you can get a little flow along the present shore, and on the right side then we expect sedimentation processes, and also in the end vegetation in the form of willows, reeds, etc. So I have one sheet more. For our EVRO project, EVRO subsidized project, we do it EcoShape. We have 4 goals on the side. On the side by designing these structures. because we want to learn from the implementation process of building with nature in Rotterdam. So we really want to taste and to find out how our urban operation process is going on, and where can we put in a building with nature knowledge, and in which form should we present it to these urban designers. The second one, of course, is that we want to put building with knowledge into these designs, because we are not leading these designs. Those are the urban designers from Rotterdam themselves. Also very nice is that we want to make a quick scan, or we are doing that already, of the building with nature possibilities in this region, according, what I said, to the natural system. In which part of the river can you put which concept? And in the end, this already started also, is because all these different projects within this program are very erratic in time, and also because of the funding possibilities, of course. So you never know when which project will start, and also not where it will start. So we are asking ourselves, are these little dots of nature contributing to the regional nature value? So what is the critical size and distance between these building with nature measures in order to really upgrade the regional natural values? And this was my presentation. So I hope you have many questions. I'm willing to answer them. And I give now the floor back to Chantal.
Thank you very much, Victor, for your interesting presentation. We will certainly go back to you, and there are a few questions already that came in. But I would like to move now to our next speaker, David Beaumont, who leads on public realm and sustainability projects at the Victoria Business Improvement District in London. His work involves bringing new green space to Victoria, as well as enhancing existing green space under a greening for growth approach in order to capture the business, health and environmental benefits it provides. David will tell us more about the Green Infrastructure Audit, which provides recommendations on how and where green infrastructure can reduce flood risk, boost biodiversity, and make Victoria more appealing to workers, residents, and tourists. David, you can start your presentation.
Thank you, Chantal, and I'll just bring my screen up here. Are you able to see that?
Yes.
Okay. So hello everybody, my name is David Beaumont and I'm the Operations Manager at the Victoria Business Improvement District here in Victoria in London. And over the next several slides I'm going to talk to you about how we've approached installing grid infrastructure here and the method we'll use to get underway and understand more about our local area. And I'm going to touch on some of the qualitative and quantitative research that we've been involved in. See this overlooking Victoria Street, which runs from the bottom left of the screen to the top right, and it's one of the main thoroughfares in the area that was built in the 1850s. And today the area is undergoing significant investment, which is seeing a lot of the rather grey and older office buildings that were built in the 1960s and 70s being replaced or refurbished. And there's about £4 billion worth of investment that's being directed into the area, including the upgrade of transport infrastructure such as the underground station at Victoria. So over the next few years, about 3 million square feet of new residential, commercial and office space will be created, so a significant amount. The Victoria Business Improvement District was set up in 2010 to bring together businesses to help shape and influence the regeneration of the area. But BIDS actually first started in North America in the 1960s and 1970s as a sort of funding mechanism involving public and private stakeholders to regenerate spaces. And here legislation was passed in 2003 enabling BIDS, and now there are about 210 in the UK and the Republic of Ireland. And the important thing to say and to note is that they are set up by and funded by businesses. So here, businesses within our bid footprint, or within any bid footprint, pay what is called a bid levy. And that's calculated as a percentage of their site's rateable value. And this rateable value is the value the property could have been let for at a specific date. And we charge businesses 0.85% of their rateable value, where it is £150,000 £150,000 or more. And charities and state-run schools are exempt. This levy increases by 2.5% a year, and the amount any one business can pay is capped at £40,000. And businesses also in retail spaces also benefit from a reduced levy. Not all businesses pay, so those that fall under the £150,000 threshold don't. And there are also differences between what bids charge. Some bids will charge 0.5% or 2%, and their threshold can be higher or lower as well. It really depends on local circumstances. We have about 180 levy-paying businesses in the area, and to give you an example of what our budget is, our income this year is projected to be around £1.5 million. And this enables us to provide services in the area that are over and above those provided by the local council. They don't replace them, and these services cover things like safety and security, area marketing, visitor support services, and things like this. In the UK here, we differ from bids in North America. It's property owners who are charged the bid levy, whereas here it is the building occupier. However, our legislation has recently changed, enabling property owner bids here in the UK to become established, but that's another talk in itself. But what you can start to see is that bids act as a mechanism for generating investment also in biodiversity, green space and green infrastructure, as long as businesses want to put their money into those things and invest in those projects. And in Victoria they do. So before we started as a business improvement district in 2010, we undertook a survey of businesses. One of the things they told us they wanted to see more of was green space. So spaces where people can sit and have a sandwich or just relax and have nearby to where they work, and that gave us the mandate to focus on green infrastructure as one of our 5 core work themes. Now, in February this year, we were renewed for another 5 years, and all but bids last for 5 years. And after that, you have to go out to your businesses, your business members, and ask them if they want, ask them if they want you to continue for another 5 years via a ballot. And we were successful in February in doing that, so we will continue with our work and our green infrastructure work until 2020, and we hope even beyond that. So the next slide here shows a map which shows our footprint in purple in the centre, and this is where we deliver our services. So we sit in the City of Westminster in London, and we're about a 110-acre site, and we include some of the major transport nodes in the area. So Victoria Coach Station towards the south of our footprint, and Victoria Train Station that serves the south-west of the UK and of England, and Gatwick Airport, and Victoria Station Underground. And collectively they cater for about 160 million passengers a year, and that's growing, so a very busy area. And we also have St James's Park, Hyde Park and Green Park nearby, and these are some of the ballparks in London. But we're not alone in London. There are about 40 or so other bids, and we're connected to them via several fora, such as the Green in the Bid Steering Group, which was set up by the Greater London Authority and that's managed by the organisation called Crossroad Partnership. And we meet every quarter and share project information and find out what grants might be available to bids for their green infrastructure projects. So what I want to do now is turn to actually installing some green space projects and some of the work we've been involved in. And it all started with this project really, this research project called a Green Infrastructure Audit. So it was carried out in 2010 by land use consultants and the Green Roof Consultancy, and we asked them to map the local area and advise us on what green infrastructure schemes could be installed and where, and what spaces could be improved. And it also helped us as we started our work by linking our work to other programs underway in the local area and in London as a whole, such as the All London Green Grid, which is a growing network of green and blue infrastructure across the capital. So the audit shows us areas of wildlife deficiency in the area, flood risk levels, and includes ratings for roofs in the area that were surveyed during the study according to whether they could hold, for example, an extensive or intensive roof system. And just to the right-hand side, you can see some of the maps there. So essentially, it's a roadmap in itself, comprising dozens of projects that we could then pursue and test and undertake in years to come. So the next few slides focus on some of the projects we've installed since that GI audit was finished. Now this slide shows one of the first sites we worked on, and this was listed in the Green Infrastructure Audit. It's adjacent to Buckingham Palace and the Queen's Gallery, And we approached the palace with the idea of improving the biodiversity of this site and also installing a rain garden. And the rain garden idea didn't prove viable, but replanting the site did. And we worked with a landscaper called Nigel Dunnett at the landscape agency, who designed the space in consultation with the head gardener at the palace. And on the bottom right, you can see work underway that involves removing topsoil and laying down some channels for some Portland stone that we included in the design, and lots of tree protection as well, so protecting the 2 London plains that are there. This next slide shows the result. So this was installed by a company called Landform, and basically Nigel's approach here is to have extended flowering over time, so there's much more forage for pollinators as possible, and also looks great for as long as it can, and also to have what he terms a future-proof garden that can cope with future weather patterns, and one also that requires low levels of maintenance. And in terms of maintenance, we, as well as paying for the install, we paid for 1 year of maintenance by Landform, and after that the garden was handed back to the palace. And what that enables us to do is carry the project through a 1 year life cycle and address any teething issues before we hand it back to the site owner. In terms of footfall, we know that in the 2013-14 financial year, over about 150,000 people visited the Queen's Gallery, which is just to the right of where this photograph was taken from. And that's not including people walking up and down the street here and going to the palace, or just going to and from walk or the different parks in the area. So moving on from the ground to walls, these blank walls were on the side of the rooms at the Palace Hotel, which is one of several hotels in our footprint. Walls weren't included in the final GI report. The focus was primarily on terrestrial and roof spaces, but they were highlighted nonetheless by the survey team. And we undertook a structural appraisal for the wall and a feasibility study about what type of living wall could be installed here. And we went to speak with the hotel, and they liked the idea so much that they worked with a living wall specialist called Gary Grant and employed a company called Treebox to install the scheme, and this is the result. So it currently spans about 450 square meters, and it was planted up at the start with over 12,000 plants. And it also has a 10,000 litre rainwater harvesting tank built into the design, and where rainwater is captured and then used to top up the main supply. And because of that, it received a grant from the Greater London Authority's Drain London Fund, which is used to support projects that make better use of rainwater and help tackle surface water flooding in London. And this is a problem in Victoria due to large areas of hard surfaces, although it's improving. And cost-wise, you're looking at a six-figure project here, so about £450 to £500 per square metre, so a significant investment by the hotel's owners. And monitoring and maintenance on a project like this is really important. This is looked after by Treebox. And we also recorded a time-lapse of the wall being installed, and that's on the hotel's website if you're interested in taking a look. This next slide is one of the most recent projects we worked on, and it's involved with taking up the concreted area at the front of the John Lewis Partnership head office, which is where this is, and installing a rain garden, and also replanting the planters at the front of the building, again working with Nigel at the landscape agency. And this is a challenging project in a few ways, partly because of site ownership. So the site, the cobbled area here at the front, is owned by Westminster City Council and also the building owner. So a legal agreement was set up between Westminster City Council and John Lewis that states, for example, what was going to be installed, and what would happen if the council ever wanted to see that space, they wanted to use that space in future, how it would be reinstated, etc. We also had plans for a living roof on the top of the portico, but that was actually abandoned because it became too complex and too costly. And the bottom right is us starting work to uncover some of the cobbles, and a significant amount of concrete was taken away from the site, so about 500 millimetres in some places. And this is the site now. So over 30 species of plants were put in. And at the bottom right is a photo of a downpipe that we tapped into. And this was taking water off part of the portico roof that originally went into the drains and therefore had to be pumped and treated, which uses, of course, energy and resources. And now that rainwater is simply diverted into the garden, and it is used to rain the plants in the garden through. So a very kind of simple approach here in its essence. So the installers, again, we worked with landform, and they also cut gaps in the curbs. So when it rains heavily, water can flow into the garden and percolate through the soil rather than cause surface water flooding. This was part funded by Natural England, which is the government's advisor for the natural environment in England, and Drain London as well, because A, it involves putting more green space into the urban environment, but B, it makes better use of water. And these really are the types of projects we need to have more of in London, especially as the anticipated impacts of climate change or wetter winters and hotter, drier summers. And they help make London and Victoria especially a lot more resilient. What I also want to say here is that the green infrastructure audit and these schemes that we've been involved in have incentivized others to do things. For example, we're now speaking with John Lewis about creating another garden nearby. After the Rubens Hotel living wall was installed, a nearby hotel saw that and they went ahead and did something similar, slightly smaller but still just as good to see. And Securities, which is one of the largest developers in the area, they've installed a very biodiverse green roof on one of their new buildings. So there is a sense of momentum that has been built since we started work, and we do feel we're influencing developers through our work, and that our research is feeding into their plans for the area and also onto their sites. But moving on and just thinking about things like heat and urban heat island effect and so on. This slide shows a thermograph of the Rubens Hotel living wall, and it's taken by Forest Research. And it demonstrates the vegetated area is about 10 degrees cooler in some places than the exposed brick work, which you can see either in white or red or orange areas. And this was taken in May 2015, and we'll do more of these over successive years to find out how the wall is performing in terms of affecting the local microclimate. These next two slides show some of the qualitative results from some research that was carried out in 2012 and 2014 by two universities that we worked with, University of York and London Metropolitan University, and it was funded by the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, also known as DEFRA. So the project aims to investigate what impacts GI improvements have had or will have on different groups of people, so workers, residents and so on. And this slide tells us that over 85% of those surveyed felt happier working environment with more green space. And the research is also useful because it yielded maps where people had indicated which green spaces in the area they valued and where they wanted to see more green space as well. And it also revealed how businesses saw green infrastructure as being good for business. So it makes people dwell longer and spend more time in shopping areas. And in fact, one of the businesses next to the large living wall felt that it attracted people to the area and around that spot, who then spent money in his shop. So what I can do is use the research here and combine it with the green infrastructure audit data to create a really good picture of where we should be installing more schemes in the future and the benefits that they can provide. The next slide, and it's actually my final slide, is also very useful. It shows comments that were made by people who were surveyed as part of the research about green space. And as well as the comments here, other comments include things like psychologically it makes you feel happier, and it helps you relax. And in terms of the large living wall, someone actually said if you don't have time to go to the park can come to you. And I think that last comment is very revealing because it suggests that even though we have some of the largest rural parks nearby, people don't always feel that they can get to them perhaps in their lunch hour, but they perhaps don't have time. And so really the key is to install high quality green space near where people work and live and shop, and to create more of them and ensure that they're designed in such a way that they can cope with future weather patterns. So what we've seen over the last 12 slides is a small snapshot of some of our work and how we've approached installing green infrastructure. I spoke about our green infrastructure audit and how that helped us form really a baseline from which we could then go forward from and start talking with businesses about implementing actual green infrastructure schemes. And I've showed you some of the research that we've been doing and been involved in, which is very useful to us to work out what the benefits of investing in green infrastructure is. So I hope you found that useful, and thank you for listening, and I look forward to answering any questions you might have towards the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David, for sharing your story with us. And I've seen that some questions are already coming in for Victor, so please also write down your questions for David. We'll take them at the end. I would like to pass on now to Marianne. I hope everything works now. We can hopefully hear you. So if you're ready, you can start your presentation. I'm not sure if it is working, so perhaps we take one question in between before we go on with the presentation of Marianne. I saw a question addressed to Victor, where it's about the approach to building with nature. Would you consider greening the city more as a cosmetic retrofit, while building with nature is a proactive system, a self-managing approach?
The last one, yes. I think it's more towards a self-managing approach, but I'm not saying greening is only an aesthetical thing, because we can also handle urban heath island with greening and these things. I'm only pointing out that the differences between greening and building with nature, that we have more of a system approach within the project. So within the project boundaries, you have to look also outside the project boundaries. And with greening, this is often not necessary. Is that okay?
Yes, sounds good to me. Let's see if we can try one more time. Marianne, can you let us know if you can start the presentation? I'm afraid there is some problem with the sound still, so let's try to do what we can to have Marianne with us. And in the meantime, I'll go back to the questions. There's one more for you, Victor. You mentioned that this partnership for building with nature is quite a diverse group of organizations, and it seems that the financing is coming mainly from public sources, although the Harbour of Rotterdam is also involved. Can you maybe tell us a little bit more on how these different interests are reconciled, and especially that the private sector looks sometimes at more short-term solutions rather than a long-term perspective. How does that work out in this partnership?
That's a nice question. Well, in this partnership, like I said, especially State Water Service and the province are contributing financially to the construction of these sites. But to come to these constructions, the designing part of it, we all put in our efforts, and that is all via our own financing ways. So I have to agree with this person that the financing of the construction is still a public thing.
Okay, that's clear. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So there's another question for you, David. That is about the green wall that you mentioned for the hotel. Are there increased returns and benefits? Has there been an assessment of that, of the benefits of this green wall?
Well, I think there's several benefits from it. So, I mean, one of the things is that it really brightens up the streetscape, especially for people walking up and down the street there. And we haven't been able to put a figure on that, and we haven't done any kind of really hard research on that. But we get anecdotal comments from people about how good it looks for the area, and it's almost like a landmark for this part of the business improvement district. The two universities, they have got some good quotes from people along those lines. The hotel itself, they're looking at how it may reduce energy use within the hotel, so in terms of the thermal insulation it might provide. But it's slightly too early days to say that. I think the first bit of research we're looking at is the effect it has on microclimate. So we're quite keen to start drawing out as soon as possible the benefits that it can provide, because certainly when you're investing from a financial point of view, and that kind of money into a project like that, it's important to find out what the return is, if you like, and see if you can put a monetary value on that. But also, regardless of the investment, it's also interesting to find out generally for other experts and I guess for the society, what do living walls like this, what do they provide? So it's it's something that we're working on and aware of.
Okay, thank you very much. There's another question. As we see rapid urban development in developing parts of the world, and the situation in cities there may be different than the one in London. In particular, the strong role of businesses in your developments. What would be your advice in terms of how to attract these types of investment in green infrastructure based on the experiences you have in the Victoria Business District?
Well, I think what's useful to do is to kind of highlight how green infrastructure can draw people to areas and keep people there, because if you go shopping, for example, to an area that has fantastic green space and trees and good public realm, I think it's fair to say that you naturally want to hang about there, and potentially that can lead to you buying things in that area compared to an area that actually doesn't have so much green space or trees and so on and so forth. There's some interesting research that's been done by a lady called Kathy Wolf, I think it is, at the US Department of Agriculture, I think it is, and some of her research is online. And she's done some studies in business districts in states and found that people would be willing to pay more for similar goods in streets that are tree-lined than those without. And I think it's it's highlighting those types of studies that can help turn people more to the idea of putting in more green space beyond what they do because they want to do it, or they are meeting building guidelines and building regulations, and also adhering to policies that local council or wherever they're working in might have.
That's very interesting. Thanks so much. I would like to try one more time to see if we can hear Marianne. We can see her presentation now, the first slide. So Marianne, if you can just give it a try to unmute your button. seems that that we can't connect, unfortunately. So I would be happy to see how we can solve the problem and make sure that your presentation can be included in one of the next URBIS webinars, because I think it's really a very valuable topic that you're addressing. Yeah, it's about the social and economic benefits of protected areas, and I think that is really yeah, important for the conversation we are having today. So then let's go back once more to the questions. I believe I saw another question for you, Victor. That is about the context of building with nature, which is about social ecological systems. One person asks if, yeah, what about the social component in the story that you were sharing, and how trade-offs were managed in relation to the interests of different stakeholders?
Yeah, very good question, because well, these are the benefits mostly required or wished for, desired by a municipality, also maybe by the WNF. But here, I guess, in one project, the Nassau Haven, which I showed you, the people living around the area are involved in setting up the design. And with the other example I gave, this is not the case. And well, I would like to see that we, after finishing the implementation of these projects, and we actually have built it, I really would like to do a questionnaire or something like that, just to monitor if you really reach the social benefits. And probably it's possible in all kinds of ways. I'm not a social scientist. I'm more on the engineering and the ecological side. So there must be many ways to do this. But as far as I know, it's not planned for, and I think that would be a missed chance if we don't.
Sounds good. Thank you. I believe there is also a participant who wants to ask a question live. I'm just checking now with the organizers. Is that possible?
That's possible. Ms. Camargo, I have unmuted you, so if you want to pose your question, please go ahead. Ms. Jutta Camargo, did you still want to pose us a question?
Ms. Camargo available? Okay, perhaps if anyone else would like to raise their hand and ask a live question, you're most welcome to. It's just simply by clicking on the little hand that you see in the question box.
Well, we're waiting for other questions. Perhaps one more to you both, Victor and David. How do you see the balance between voluntary and regulatory efforts to change this paradigm of using nature as a solution, to move away from these short-term benefits and looking more into the long-term benefits that nature can provide to society and economy? David, do you want to go first?
Yeah, can you just run a question by me once more about voluntary and sorry, what was the other?
Yeah, What do you think is the best balance in terms of voluntary and more legislative efforts to change this paradigm of how we can use nature as a solution to challenges for society and economy? So what type of balance do we need?
Yeah, I think they both have a role to play. But I think in some areas, it's really good to see legislation leading on things like, for example, in development, size of, for example, back up there, looking at local plans and policies and about how, for example, biodiversity should be maximised with new developments and so on. I think that then gives a good signal to developers and other folks who are looking to build projects about what is expected, and hopefully they will have to meet those minimum requirements, but also that will then start leading to think what more they can do. So I think they both have a role to play, but I think the legislation is very important in kind of guiding the way. I think there's also kind of the feedback, which is legislators looking at what is out there and kind of new innovations, and then seeking to update what they are asking of developers to ensure that there is this kind of incremental positive change over the years.
Thank you. And Victor, what is your view on that?
Well, it sounds like a really complicated question, but I'm just wondering if we really should start making up desired balances. I think if we show that it works within pilots or whatever, then people will start implementing it because it might be cheaper, it might be more functional, it might give you extra benefits. And I think from a legislative side, it should, well, at least there should be no restrictions in implementation. I don't think legislation should really force people to use these kind of functional nature-based solutions, but at least they should open the way that it's possible, and it will be used by practitioners or like municipalities when they see it works, when they see it's functional.
Thank you. That's very valuable. I'm looking at the time, and I realize that we're close to the end of this dialogue, and we hope that you all enjoyed it, and we look forward to hear from you if you have further questions or ideas to share on this topic. We also realize that there's a lot more to say, and we will certainly continue this dialogue in some of the next webinars, and as said, we really hope to hear Marianne's story in one of the following sessions too. Well, just to conclude, I think it's often that a crisis or a risk provokes new thinking, and we see several developments in the world that look into new solutions, and we've heard some interesting stories today. I wanted to mention another example which relates to the water shortages in South America. The capital city of Colombia, Bogota, and its 8 million inhabitants depend actually on one single protected area, the Chingaza National Park, for their water supplies. And there, the city, the public water companies and utilities are working with resource managers and communities in and around the park to maintain the wetland functioning and in the watersheds, in that way to maintain the water supplies, showing again the value of nature. And another example is from the Great Eastern Japan earthquake and tsunami that affected most dramatically those areas of the coastline where natural defenses of wetlands and forests had given way to development over the years. And one of Japan's responses is to create a reconstruction national park to fully restore ecosystem functions while reducing risks and rebuilding the fishing and tourism economy of that region. So when it's about the value of nature, it really deserves much more attention in making it more visible, and to find ways that reconcile this imbalance that we see today. To do that, it is important to raise more awareness in cities and also help cities with knowledge on the role of biodiversity and ecosystem services, and to provide support and capacity building to create innovative ways for integrating natural solutions in urban landscapes. An important part of this awareness raising is communicating good examples and best practices and case studies, as we have done today. And we do welcome your examples as well in the future. We can make them available through the URBIS website, which serves as a place for inspiration. So I would like to thank the speakers and all the participants and also ICLE for making this webinar possible. And we look forward to talk to you again for the next dialogue in August. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you, Chantal. And thanks to all our listeners. Just another reminder that our next dialogue will be on the 6th of August, curated by Dr. David Maddox on ecosystem services, assessing the current state of cities. We hope to have you join us then again. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes, also from my side, thank you all for being here, and I have the honor to convey a little message also from Marianne Ketunen, saying that she's very sorry she couldn't give her presentation today. She's happy to provide it and give the presentation on another URBIS Dialogue. Thank you all.
Thank you.